Hello and welcome to the Heat Check podcast, the Miami Herald's Damian Lillard podcast. I'm David Wilson, and I'm joined, as always, on the other line by Anthony Chang, our Heat beat writer here at the Herald. Anthony, what's going on?
Just another boring offseason for the Heat, huh?
Yeah.
They're always in these conversations. It's like, I know they haven't gotten many of them recently, but last year Kevin Durant. I mean, you can go back to the Gordon Hayward summer. They're just always in these conversations, and here they are again.
Yep, not a surprise. We are dragging now into week 2. What day did he ask for a trade? Was it last Wednesday?
I think it was July 1, so it was like
July 1. Yeah, so we're heading into week 2. Yeah. Yes, that sounds right. Yes, it was the day. Wasn't Twitter down all day that day? I think.
Yeah, Twitter's been down like every day.
Anyway, we're moving into week 2 of the Damian Lillard watch. That is obviously the big topic of conversation. What we'll mostly focus on, although there's not a whole lot to say. But there is some other stuff to dive into. This is the first time we've talked since free agency opened, so we've got some pickups for the Heat, minimum guys, some fun minimum guys, some guys leaving as we kind of expected. And one game of Summer League in the books. 2 will be in the books by the time everyone's listening to this, but we got to see Jaime Jaquez's debut of really impressive Nikola Jovic performance on Monday, and obviously that'll pick up in full gear once they get to Vegas later this week. Let's start with Damian Lillard, though, and we'll see if I guess it's always possible that something could change between now and when people listen to this, but it kind of feels like it's just everyone's waiting each other out right now. Damian Lillard has, according to everyone who knows anything, pretty much, basically said Miami or bust in some ways. And now the Heat are going to make their offer, and the Blazers are going to try to get more, and feels like now we're just in a holding pattern with that until finally someone balks. I predicted last week that it was going to happen on July 4th, and I got to say, on like Monday, I was feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah.
Now it just feels like it could happen any minute. So, Anthony, I'll ask you the big question that everyone has right now. When will this Damian Lillard trade happen?
It's so funny how people expect us to know exactly when it's going to happen. Like, that's like probably the most popular question on Twitter is like, when is the trade going to happen? I want to answer. I wish I knew. I wouldn't have to carry my laptop everywhere I went.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you had it right, David. Like, just like the hundreds of other people covering this storyline. Like from what I hear, someone very close to the Lillard camp, like, it's Miami or bust. Does not like. I asked the question like, but would he consider going here? And they're like, no, it's just Miami and that's it. Miami. So. This is kind of what Damian Lillard has to do, I think, because I think both of us, I think we talked about this, like the Heat don't have the best offer, I don't think, right?
No.
Like out of all the teams, they don't have the best offer. They needed Dame to do this and kind of make it known he wants to go to the Heat. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. I think you're right. Like Portland is gonna, they're not gonna just give in, right? Like I don't know if people just expected Portland to say, okay, you want to go to Miami? Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it right now. Let's just do it right now.
Yeah, they run better than the Wizards are.
You said it, not me. And Dame has a leverage here, obviously.
And he has no trade. He does not have a no trade clause.
He doesn't have a no trade. He doesn't have a no trade clause, but he's kind of creating one right now because not only is he like an icon and one of the best Blazers ever, arguably the best Blazer ever, and as a franchise you want to do right by a guy like that that's been loyal to you for so long, but if he really makes it known that he doesn't want to go anywhere else, and from what I've heard and from other reports, he's willing to make this messy if it gets to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it could get ugly. I mean, I think both sides hope that it doesn't get to that, but it could. Yes, Miami's offer might not be the best one out there. I know people throughout the media and media landscape are kind of ripping Miami's offer or the perceived offer. But what other offers on the table at this point? Like, right, I don't think no team is going to be willing to trade $41 million in contracts, all the picks necessary to get a deal like that done for a player who just doesn't want to be there and has 4 years left in his contract.
And it's. I remember we had this exact same conversation last year with Kevin Durant when he narrowed his choice. It was like Phoenix, Miami.
Miami.
Someone else.
I think it was just those two pretty much.
And I think I was making the case back then, and other people were making the same case that Kevin Durant was such a good player that if you were a team like New Orleans or whatever, you take the risk. You say, all right, we're going to trade for Kevin Durant. We're going to call his bluff. He's not going to sit out, right? That's just not in his DNA. He's not going to sit out. And I think with a guy like that, it made sense to take that risk, right? At the time, he was kind of consensus top 5 player in the league. If you bring him to an already good, like he basically turns any team into a fringe title contender. And then obviously if you're a good team like New Orleans was the team I think I mentioned last year, seemed like an up and coming team. Zion, the vibes were better. Like it made sense, I think, and obviously it wound up working out for Kevin Durant. No one called that bluff. Damian Lillard is different, right? He's still really good, but he's not Kevin Durant, right? He's missed a lot of time in the last couple of years, right? Some of it injury, some of that is just the team's been bad and might as well sit him out. He's a small point guard. Those guys don't always age super well. Like there are a much smaller list of teams that I think Damian Lillard makes sense for than Kevin Durant made sense for literally every team in the league. He's Kevin Durant. Anyone in the league should want him and take that gamble. This one, the other teams out there, like Brooklyn is a team that probably could best Damian Lillard's offer, but as we said a couple weeks ago,
Boston maybe makes sense.
Why even if you're Brooklyn, why do you want him? Where is he getting you to? Boston is the one that maybe can make a better offer, and I know he's kind of, I guess, through back channels made it known he doesn't want to go to Boston, but Boston is a team where that would be the one where I'm like, they could take that gamble, right? Because Damian Lillard could take them to another level. You bet that he's going to enjoy playing with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and all that kind of stuff. But
Philly's the other one too, right? With Embiid, if you might have to include Maxey into that type
but
of deal.
They've all accounts don't want to put Maxey in the deal, so that kind of puts them out of the mix a little bit. It seems like is the Heat's offer that much worse than the Celtics? Like, if the Heat throw in Hero, is it worse than the than a Sixers offer without Maxey?
Yeah, no, and the Sixers don't have the picks either right now.
Right, so exactly. They're in a similar position to the Heat. It's if you were comparing their offers, it's do you prefer Maxey or Hero, and by all accounts, they're not even putting Maxey on the table, so they're kind of rough at that point.
I think one big difference is here, and Kevin Durant, yes, he made a list of 2 teams last year, and that was well documented.
And he got it. He got his wish by the end.
He got what he wanted.
It took a long time, but
he got what he wanted. But I get the sense, and this is just me, just the sense I get from talking to people, that Lillard feels a lot stronger about where he wants to go. He does not he's not, as of now, he's not open to going anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And I think last year there were, like you said, there were people talking well, you trade him to Toronto, New Orleans or Toronto, maybe he'll he loves basketball. He's probably gonna play. He's not gonna sit out.
You gambled. You were convincing him. You could convince him once he shows.
Kind of like the Kawhi thing. Kawhi.
Right, the Kawhi thing is the perfect example.
The Toronto thing came out of nowhere, and he played that year, and they won a championship, and it was all worth it, even though he was there for a year.
Yeah, even though they didn't convince him to like it, apparently.
Exactly.
He left right away.
Exactly. He played 1 year, he did his time, and left. But I just get the sense that I don't know. It could be posturing, but I don't know if Dame is gonna do that. If they hypothetically trade him to Boston or Philadelphia or Brooklyn, I just don't know how he'll handle that. He's made it very known, well known through a ton of reporters, right? It's not him, but just people around him, right? That he only wants to play for the Heat.
Reporters, national reporters,
everybody,
it's everyone.
Yeah, it's just so much. It's out there already, and I think teams know that. So to me, and I probably just because I say this, I don't, I'm going to be called a jinx if it doesn't happen. But I think it's inevitable. I think he's going to end up on the Heat. I don't think it's a matter of if it happens. To me, it's a matter of how and when, what the deal looks like, and does this drag out to August, September, God forbid February to the trade deadline? I don't know. But I just think I'd be pretty shocked if he doesn't end up in a Heat uniform.
Yeah. And the other difference between the Kevin Durant situation is the franchise loyalty thing, which I think that's kind of become a hot topic, right? Is like, should the Blazers listen to his wishes? And, would they be better suited? Probably, like we said, there might not even be a better offer out there right now, but on paper, yeah, they should just take the better offer. And I don't buy the whole notion that if you screwed him, it would screw you for like.
Yeah,
I don't buy that at all. Like,
I agree.
players,
I think it's kind of overplayed. Yeah.
no one's given the Blazers a favor because in the future because they like did right by Damian Lillard. But
I think it's more about the relationship with the player and the franchise, right? Like
right, exactly. It's more about Damian Lillard's been there for a decade.
Yeah,
he's beloved there. Presumably Joe
how do
Cronin
you
and
want
everyone
that
office likes
yeah.
to
How
end.
do you want that to end and like how the organization views him and how he views the organization after his career, like that kind of stuff,
And by all, they met, right? By all accounts, they had conversations that were like, we're going to let you make the call essentially here. And he probably took a little, I'm sure they were maybe a little frustrated with how long it took him to kind of decide what he wanted to do. But it seems like they were on the same page in terms of like, we'll make this happen. We'll make this work for you. They probably would like to have more than one team on his list.
Yeah.
But yeah, now they're going to just try to hold out for as much as they can. And that's what they should be doing. They have no incentive to rush this along, especially, if, Summer League is happening, like we said, Jovic, they're getting a chance to see Jovic. They're getting a chance to see Jaquez. Like, I know it's small stuff, but you get a better sense of what these guys are. And if Jaquez in the deal can't happen for 30 or what, 20 days.
Now, like 27
days.
Yeah, 4 weeks probably, yeah.
So there is, even if something is agreed to, there's a chance that it doesn't go through technically until August or whatever. So they have no reason to rush. The Heat kind of don't have reason to rush either, other than the fact that the longer this goes on, people can change their minds on things.
Yeah, I think maybe that's Portland's hope, right? And that's the danger that Heat had. Like,
it's what happened with Kevin Durant last year, right? It was like, I demand a trade, and then a month later, it was, I'll stick around.
Yeah, he could soften his stance. He'd be like, well, I just want to get out of here. Like, just trade me to these five, like any of these 5 teams.
Yeah, exactly.
That is what, if the Heat's end is like, they do not want that to happen. So it's like, yes, the Heat has leverage here because Dame wants to go there, and I'm guessing there aren't many great offers out there because the rest of the league knows that. But how much time is the Heat willing to go with this and risk that? Like, things get weird, things change with time.
Yeah, the Blazers' leverage is that there's no incentive for them to trade him right now. Like,
yeah.
Other than the fact that they probably would like to do it by the start of the season, right? So you can start with the
You don't want to bring that
era.
You don't want to bring that stuff to me today either. Like,
right, yeah.
That's the best. You want to get it done player in franchise history.
By the middle of September, you want it done with. By the end of September, you want it done with, basically. But that's 3 months that they have to worry about it.
Can we? One other thing too, just before we move on to another topic, but the Heat's offer. While, again, I think you and I agree it's not the best offer probably that an NBA team can put together for Damian Lillard, it's not a bad offer. Like, it's decent. Like, Tyler Hero, I feel like he's getting dragged here, right?
I know.
People, and I get it, he has a big contract right now, but he's a good player. Like, Tyler Hero, 6th man of the year a couple years ago, fringe all-star, really good scorer, just gifted scorer, was pretty efficient this year. It's not like he was just scoring at on a bunch of shots. Like, he was pretty efficient this year. Yes, defensively, he's not great, but he tries. I think he got better on that end this year. He's not a bad player. He's 22 years old. He's gonna get better. I just want to put that out there. And also, they have 2 first-round picks to trade right now, 28 and 30. Those are not bad first-round picks for a team to get because who knows what the Heat are gonna look like at that point.
I don't think anyone's ever expecting the Heat to be drafting in the top 5 because it's happened once, ever, basically. But
if there are any Heat picks you want,
you want them further out, yeah.
And they're probably gonna unlock if they have to do this, if they do this deal, they're probably gonna have to unlock a 3rd, and they can do that by lifting the protections on the OKC pick. So 3 first-round picks, 5 pick swaps. Let's say Hero, and then I like in my mind, the trio of Caleb Martin, Jovic, and Jaquez. I think if the Heat can keep 2 of those 3, they that's a win, right? But let's say you have to put in 2 of those, Caleb Martin, yes, he has a player option next year, but he's a good player on a cheap salary this year. And then you get his bird rights. He's an asset.
And obviously, he's like a perfect complementary guy, theoretically.
Yeah.
For what they got, they're going to be so guard heavy after a trade like that. They need some wing guys.
Yeah. And if you say you put Lowry in that deal to make the money work, he's an expiring, right? So that has value. And then you have Jovic as a guy that, if you could throw in there too. I know Heat fans are falling in love with right now, but he's 20 years old and he's really skilled and seems to have a lot of upside. So I don't think the offer is going to include Caleb, Jovic, and Jaquez. But if they need to include one or two of those guys, the Heat's offer is not bad when you think about the picks and the players involved.
Yeah. And again, he's not he's really good, but he's not Kevin Durant. You're not getting that haul for him. He's played like 87 games in the last 2 years. Like, he was fantastic last year. He was not very good the year before. Obviously dealing with a lot of injuries that year, but shot 40% from the field that year. Like, he's good, but he's a 32-year-old small point guard. Like,
yeah,
those guys don't go for the same value as a guy like Kevin Durant or, the Rudy Gobert threw the trade market off last year. Damian Lillard's better than Rudy Gobert, but like, they're competing against no one. And again, that offer ultimately I don't think is that bad, especially for a team that, they kind of have like everyone thinks, oh, you just want to get picks. You want to push it off like when you're rebuilding. They're in a position where if Scoot is as good as advertised, they're going to be, that rebuild's not going to take super long, right? They're going to be hoping to be probably not in the playoffs this year, but the year after that. So a guy like Hero helps you with that. A guy like Caleb Martin potentially helps you with that. And to me, like the picks, like, yes, obviously if you had a 24 pick or 25 pick to give, if they had a chance to get a good pick like that from someone, obviously the Heat, because of how good they are, can't really offer that. Then yeah, that would be pretty valuable, but you're going to be trading him to a really good team. Like, the picks you get aren't going to be very good unless that team owns someone else's picks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I still think Damian Lillard's probably a top 10, definitely top 15 player in the NBA.
Yeah.
But your point is right, that is like, this market's going to be small for him because he is 32, 33 years old. He has 4 years left on his deal at over $200 million. Like, only a team that feels like they're one guy away from a championship is going to make that trade. And it's kind of perfect for the Heat because they feel like they're in that category, right? They're missing that, like, and it's kind of exactly what the Heat need, like a pure scorer who's a lead guard who can shoot threes.
Right. And they can cover up for him defensively because their two other best players are two of the best defensive players in the league. So it makes sense for a whole lot of reasons. And I agree with you. It feels like it's going to happen at some point here. It's just a matter of when. Let's dive into some of the free agent pickups for the Heat. We'll do the free agent movement first. Strus and Gabe departing. Surprised? Are you surprised both of them are gone, or did you kind of start to feel like it was inevitable?
I'm kind of surprised both are gone. I didn't think they would keep both, obviously, but I thought Strus was definitely gone, especially when kind of started hearing that the offers are going to be around like $14-16 million, which is he ended up getting. The Heat weren't going to match that with their luxury tax situation. But I thought they would try to keep Gabe, and they tried, right? But they just didn't go as far as I thought they would. And maybe that's because this is the day before the Dame trade request came out. So maybe that's because they had intel that Dame was eventually going to do that, and they knew they were going to have a starting point, or a very good chance of landing a new starting point guard. But I think their final offer was like basically $8 million a year for 4 years, around there. I thought they might go up. Like, if they would have gone up to 10, probably they probably could have gotten him. Gabe wanted to stay. But at the end of the day, like, 3 years, $33 million from the Lakers with a chance to be their starting point guard. Go back.
He's a West Coast. He's a California guy.
The California guy. Like, it's a good spot for Gabe. I know he wanted to stay here. That would have been his first choice, but this is his first big payday, right? So
yeah,
it was a big enough amount more that Gabe chose the Lakers, and that's just the way it goes. I mean, I think the Heat, because of their tax situation, just kind of were trying to be disciplined and didn't want to go above a certain number, and that's what it came down to.
Yeah. So because if this Lillard trade happens, Kyle probably goes in the deal, as you said earlier.
would imagine, but it could be Duncan, right? It could be Duncan instead of Kyle. Yeah.
So what do they do about the point guard situation there? Because obviously you got Dame. They don't really have a backup.
Goran? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like
Jamari Bouye?
Jamari Bouye, they're gonna have. I mean, unless they, I mean, this could turn into a 4 or 5 team deal,
right? So I guess that would.
Who knows? Yeah, maybe they get a point guard back, like another point guard back in
Chris Paul.
Deal. Somebody like that. Yeah, I mean, the point guard market is drying up.
Yeah.
It's really like I'm half joking, but I'm not. Like Goran, we know he wants to be back here. He would love to end his career here. Yes, his best days are ahead of him, but can he give you 10, 12 minutes a game, right? Probably. And then the Heat really don't play with a true point guard a lot of times.
Yes, anymore. That's true.
So, and Dame's going to play 30-plus minutes. So you're just looking at, like 15 minutes to fill. And some of them might be whatever point guard they sign in the free agent market or get back in the trade. And other times it'll be Jimmy playing point guard. So they'll figure it out. But, yeah, I think that's a big question mark, especially, with Tyler probably going to be included in the deal. They are going to be thin as far as, ball handling guards.
Yeah. Kendrick Nunn, he's still out there, I think.
Kendrick Nunn is another name.
Aaron Holiday, I like the Holiday family.
They're talented, right? He's. I'm trying to look at. We have a list here. Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, John Wall, who's lives in Miami, George Hill, Kemba Walker, Ish Smith.
George Hill. It's kind of amazing. George Hill had never played for the Heat.
He played for every other team in the NBA.
I know, and he's such a Heat guy.
Yeah. I mean, it could be him. I don't know. I mean, I would think out of all those names, because of his connection with the Heat,
Goran's the favorite, yeah.
Makes the most sense. But as of a few days ago, I don't think they've reached out to Goran. Not saying that can't change, right? But they might. I think the Heat are kind of in a holding pattern, waiting to see what happens. With the Dame trade and what the roster looks like after that deal's done, if it gets done. But I just think as much as the market keeps drying up, it might just end up being Goran, which would be a cool story, right? He's beloved here, one of the best point guards in Heat history. And again, I think in a backup role, I think he could do the job.
Yeah, and I was kind of joking about Jamari Bouye, but he did look pretty good on, those. Gabe Vincent came out of nowhere too. I'm not expecting Jamari Bouye to
right away
come in, but what Gabe was a couple years ago. Could he be that? Sure, why not?
There's a reason the Heat signed 2 guards to two.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
Drew Smith and Bouye. They know they're going to need to find some ball handling guards. And again, the market's drying up, so it was probably smart of them to use 2 of the. Now they have 3 2-way contracts. 2 of the 2 ways on those type of guards.
Yeah. As far as the Heat's additions, they get the Josh Richardson reunion. Yeah. I guess he's kind of a ball hand. He's more of a wing, but a guy who can ball handle a little bit. And Thomas Bryant, first Josh Richardson reunion. The Heat kind of never wanted to let him go, right? And he never wanted to leave Miami. It's kind of. I'm sure as soon as that fit came together, everyone was pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. He was the basically the big piece in the Jimmy Butler deal.
Yeah.
In Philly. He's a good player. I know he's kind of bounced around teams since leaving the Heat, and he really hasn't found consistent spot since then. But with the Heat, he developed into a real rotation guy, legit rotation guy. And he's been a rotation guy since even leaving. He had a good year, a good 3-point shooting year last season. I think in the role they're going to probably use him in as a 3-and-D guy, and a guy who can also is athletic enough to finish around the basket too. It's perfect for him. He might even be the Heat starting 2 guard. He might if Tyler Hero isn't traded.
Yeah.
He's a good option, especially because of his defense, in that starting lineup next to Dame, and his shooting. So, I think that's a really good pickup, especially at the minimum. And then Thomas Bryant, how much the talk last season was all about the backup center. Finding just somebody competent to kind of hold down the fort right when Bam went out. I think Thomas Bryant, again, at the minimum, very good value signing. I think he's a guy who can do that. Physical, good rebounder, good offensive rebounder, and he can hit threes, which kind of I didn't realize.
He's pretty skilled. He's pretty skilled.
Yeah. So again, for 10, 12 minutes a game while Bam is out, he can more than do that job. So I just think, again, they'll need to fill out the roster, especially probably after the trade. They'll probably have even more roster spots to fill after that. But right now, the two minimum guys they've found on the market, I think they hit on both. Two good signings at that price point.
Yeah, I remember watching him in Indiana, and as a freshman, he was like this monster, just like classic, big, college big man, just classic, like high. He was a big recruit, big man, super athletic, stronger, just more physically advanced than everyone. And then he came back his sophomore year and like thought he was a small forward, which I kind of like hated. But you watch him now play in the NBA, and he's got some skill like that. He was clearly trying to develop that. He started 25 games for the Lakers last year. Kind of back when they were a mess. I think he was part of the one of the trades they made. He was part of. I think
he went to Denver.
He went to Denver. I think he was part of the like D'Angelo Russell, like part of that whole big trade. Yeah, I think he went to Denver in that one and got buried. He's behind Nikola Jokic, like got buried pretty quickly there.
Yeah.
But he was pretty good he had a nice little run in Washington. I think the last time the Wizards were in the playoffs, he was on that team. And in LA, I think they're one of my favorite photos of last year is I think LeBron when he's shooting and Thomas Bryant with a great seal. He was wide open in the paint, calling for the ball.
Should have made that pass.
He should have. He was open. So yeah, I like Thomas Bryant.
Yeah, I think again two good value signings and two guys
upgrade an upgrade over Cody Zeller probably, right?
Yeah, I think so. And not only because of just the fact that he's younger and probably more athletic, but he could shoot he gives you a little bit
more skill. I don't know enough about how he is defensively. Not like Cody Zeller was like a lockdown defender, but he seems like a kind of guy who could play next. Bam's gonna be the starting center, I would guess, but Thomas Bryant, they're not gonna do the too big thing. I don't think as their starting lineup.
It's like who started taking his starting spot?
He's gonna be the center, not the power forward. I would guess that they're gonna play smaller to start games, but Bryant does seem like he could play next to Bam in spots.
Yeah, I think so. And the same thing with you get to Orlando Robinson too. Like they convert him to a standard contract. Now they have 3 centers on the roster. Orlando Robinson has been saying
I don't know much about him playing next to Bam just because of the we'll see.
I agree, but every time we've talked to Orlando this year in this offseason, he said a big goal of his is to shoot threes and make them. He thinks he can do it. And coaches have been saying that he's gotten a lot better in that area because he wants to play next to Bam, he said. And he went 2 of 3, I think, in the first summer league game from 3.
Yeah, he did.
So I don't think they'll play much together, but just something to keep an eye on.
Were you surprised Yurt just gone?
Yes and no. I thought they would at least make a qualifying offer, but I guess the view was he's probably still just a minimum guy, and the qualifying offer was more than the minimum. And I think they had their eyes.
Probably came down to him and Orlando Robinson, basically, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Yurt is skilled. We've seen it. He's a really good, just gifted rebounder, but defensively he just never could find his place, and he's kind of struggled in the Heat system. Some of that was when he came back from injury and he just wasn't up, in normal form yet. But he never became like the defender I think that he wanted him to.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of the reason why probably won't be back. He's still a free agent, we should add, but he has 3 centers in the roster, so I don't think they're
hard to see a fit.
Yeah. But I was a little surprised that they didn't at least extend a qualifying offer, but. I'm sure he'll find some NBA home because I think he is skilled enough to be an NBA player.
Yeah, would not be surprised to see him put up some pretty good numbers, unlike maybe a bad team next year, which is probably better for him because the Heat, he's still a developmental player. Not all his fault. A lot of it is injuries have really stunted his opportunities to develop, but he's still a developmental player, and the Heat, especially if they get Damian Lillard, that team's not screwing around this year at all, right? They're going to gun for a lot of wins and a championship, and it's hard to play a developmental center significant minutes in that kind of situation.
Yeah, you can only have so many developmental guys in your roster at that point, right?
Yeah, and then they could have developmental guards, as we pointed out, or some guys on the wing if they lose both Duncan and Strus. They're going to need some no matter what happens in that theoretical Damian Lillard trade, they're going to have to play some young guys at important spots because they're going to lose. Whether I know say what you will about Lowry and Duncan, but those guys are important role players for this team, especially after losing Gabe and Matt.
That's the thing. Yeah, you're probably going to at least lose one of those guys in this trade, right?
And both of them were due for bigger jobs this year because of Gabe, and they're the one guy who was kind of ahead of them, like exactly ahead of them on the depth chart is gone too. So there's going to be some developmental guys in the backcourt. It makes sense that they're going to try to have a lot of experience in the front court.
Definitely. Yeah, they're either going to need another point guard, or they're going to need another really good 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
To fill the void.
All right, let's wrap up with Summer League. You head out to Vegas later this week. The Heat play. We're recording Wednesday afternoon. The Heat play Game 2 in Sacramento tonight. Game 1 on Monday. Some very, very impressive showings from, in particular, the last two guys the Heat drafted. I thought Nikola Jovic obviously kind of like stole a lot of the headlines, but Jaime Jaquez also, kind of proved to be exactly, I think, what I think Heat fans, not proved to be, but we saw that if he looks like that this year, that's like exactly what Heat fans should be looking for, and what the Heat were looking for, a guy who's just ready to play. Sometimes rookies go to Summer League and they struggle, but he just, he looked like one of the older guys out there because he was.
Do the Heat need Damian Lillard now that they have Jovic and
That's true. Yeah, Jovic at point guard.
Maybe. It was honestly it is Summer League, right? You take it with a grain of salt, but it's encouraging, right? That they look like the two best players in the court in that game against the Lakers. I don't think it was even a conversation. They were the two best players in the court. Jovic was just, you compare it to last Summer League when I think he had one big game, but pretty much other than that, he was pretty quiet. Kind of looked lost. Yeah. Maybe he was 19. He's not much. He's only 20 now, but still, just 1 year under his belt. Growing into his body, adding 20 pounds of not just muscle strength. You saw it all on display. Just a lot more in command of his body, a lot more in command of the game. The game looked like it slowed down for him. He was getting into the paint at will, kind of using that added weight to absorb contact and finish over guys. He drew 7 free throws in 27 minutes. Just really impressive. Again, for a guy who's, I think, 6'11", now he grew an inch since last year. He's only 20 years old. His skill set is I don't. People make the jokes about him and Jokic, and they're not the same player, but you see kind of the skill set there of a passing, the way they even pass the ball, it's kind of similar, the way they read the game, and just the way they move. There are a little bit of similarities there. To me, he was the best player on the court. Jaquez was really good, but Jovic was probably the most encouraging. Just his skill set. If he could continue this momentum in Summer League, and that's a big if because there's a long way to go, 3 weeks left, and he'll play some good competition. He could be in the rotation if he's still here after this.
If he's still here, like we said, him playing well only helps because he's either boosting his trade value a little bit or he could be part of the rotation, as we said. And I like that. As we. A week or two ago, after Jaquez got drafted, I said I like the idea that Jovic was going to kind of get to be the ball handler in Summer League, and Jaquez because he's going to be in an off-ball role.
He was playing off the ball a lot.
The team, he was playing off the ball a lot, and running the floor well. That's what I liked about his game on Monday was he was playing the game he's going to play for the Heat.
Yeah.
He's playing more minutes, getting more touches, but just running the floor, getting the transition opportunities. Shooting the 3 of 7 from 3, obviously, I think very encouraging. And, sometimes, a lot of times, the rookie who comes to Summer League, the teams will just be like, all right, you get to kind of cook. We're going to see everything you can do. The Heat clearly know that Jaquez is going to have a specific role and, are kind of grooming him for it already in Summer League.
Yeah, I think the 3 of 7 from 3 is probably the most impressive part of his Summer League debut, just because there are so many questions about his 3-point shooting, and these came really. I think most of them came in spot up opportunities, which he didn't get much of at UCLA, and that was the whole talk of 3-point shooting wasn't good.
As a sophomore, he was good when he was playing spot up roles. So Yeah, definitely a good sign.
Yeah, and he'll. I mean, if he could hit 37% of his threes as a rookie, he's gonna have a big role.
Yeah,
because he can do a lot. He can do a lot of stuff on the offensive end. He's obviously 3-point shooting is not. It's not. He's not like just a 3-point shooter, right? That's not the strength of his offensive game. He does a lot more. But if he could be a threat from deep, yeah, he's gonna be a weapon for them immediately.
I think we just need to talk about summer league dunks.
Yeah,
because the Heat had a lot of them. What was there was a good one in another game. Trey Mann had like a ridiculous one. I love how I think it's everyone. Well, everyone's young, right? So they're all super athletic for the most part, and everyone is like trying to do crazy stuff. But the summer league dunk, I feel like, is like an underappreciated part of the off season. Is just that people go to summer league and all of a sudden everyone is yamming on everyone.
Can dunk. Yeah, Hakas can get up.
Like Hakas had two jams.
Bouye had another one.
Bouye had a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was. Again, I know lateral quickness is a concern with Hakas, especially on the defensive end, but he can get up. 40-inch vert. You saw it immediately in summer league, like with those two dunks. He can play above the rim, which again is we kind of knew, but just to see it in that setting and immediately. Just to, this confirmation and again another layer of how he can help this team. Especially more on the offensive. I think his defensive game will be a work in progress, but offensively, he has a skill set that could be really useful for Miami as a rookie.
Last guy I want to mention just because I know you like him, Chase Adije. Is that how it's pronounced? Adije.
Yeah,
Chase Adije. Right. Yeah, that's your guy.
The question is can he continue to? I mean, he's not going to shoot 4 of 7 on threes all the time. But he was not a good 3-point shooter in college.
No.
So if he, I don't know if this is an outlier, but if he would have shot this one in college, it probably would have been a draft pick because he's a really good defensive player. So that'll be kind of the thing to monitor with him is, does he stay, at a good rate from 3 during summer league? If he does, you might earn that last 2-way contract from the Heat. I know he's another guard, right? But to have 3 guards on 2 ways, but it's like we said, they need guards.
And
he has a skill set that kind of just fits into the Heat quote unquote culture with his. I think he's picking up guys up full court pretty much the entire game, which we know that's Eric Spoelstra loves to do. Creating turnovers with that. He had 2 steals, created another one that he didn't get credit for the steal. He had the 4 made threes. He was the undrafted guy that made the biggest impact in game 1. Also, Drew Peterson, too. I think I had heard that in the first few practices, he was kind of one of the standouts of those sessions, undrafted out of USC. Big shooter. He only shot 1 of 3 from 3. And I'm sure he'll do better than that, moving forward. But he had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Thought his passing was interesting. You could tell that he's more to his game than just shooting threes. So he's another guy to watch. I know he didn't have a big point total in his debut, but the fact they started him and you kind of saw other parts of his game, another encouraging sign.
Yeah, feels like those are probably the 2. I mean, pretty much everyone else in the rotation is already on a deal with the Heat, so it feels like those are the 2 guys kind of duking it out for that last 2-way spot.
Yeah, and then I know people are kind of want to see the kid from Washington State, Justin Powell, another shooter.
Right.
He didn't play in that first game, so we'll see if he plays either tonight after you when you listen to this podcast, or maybe in Vegas. But he's another intriguing name that I know a lot of people have been wanting to see.
All right, Anthony, you got to get going. So we will wrap things up here. You can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chang. He will be in Vegas and on Damian Lillard Watch full time. So check him out there.
That's my new job.
Of course, check Miami Herald. Because we will have all the stories and reactions and all that kind of stuff to you if and when this Lillard trade happens. You can follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. I'm also anxiously awaiting Damian Lillard resolution to happen and enjoying watching the Marlins these days.
South Florida sports continues to
still
produce winners.
A quiet time of year, but they're at least. I was worried they were going to fall off a cliff as soon as the Heat and Panthers lost.
Right.
Like
They only
just
got
the timing
better.
was gonna be terrible,
Yeah.
and all they've done is gotten better. So, yeah, check out MiamiHerald.com. Still lots of sports going on and sports coverage going on, even in this quiet time of year. So, thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.